Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Surya Panditi.
Good morning and welcome to CA World and to this session. Again, my name is Surya Panditi. I'm the General Manager of the Agile Management Business Unit, which has several products. We'll touch on those in a few minutes. A little bit about my background. I've been with CA about 18 months or so. I've done startups, like brand new startups, where I was a co-founder, and I've also worked for a company with 80,000 people. So I've seen the full spectrum of small, medium, and large companies. But I wanted to share with you first a personal experience. So here I was at a very large company, running a fairly large business, budget of 500 million, and I was used to doing things a certain way, a very traditional waterfall type of development model. Many of you with large companies may see the same thing that kind of relate to what I went through. And when I first came across the Agile working, I wasn't quite sure what to make of it, frankly, because I was used to doing things a certain way and being fairly successful at it. And in fact, the company I was working for was using both Clarity PPM as well as Rally at some point. But here's what really opened my eyes was I was spending all this money, the team was spending all this money on developing features. And when I saw, we did actually a project to see how much was being used by customers, and we found that almost 40% of the features we were developing were not being deployed, were not being used. That was such an eye-opener to me. And that's when I started to realize that having the customer in the middle, understanding how they're using the product, and really working in an agile manner was so fundamentally important for the business. I wanted to share that with you because you probably are seeing the same thing in many of your companies as well. So let's talk a little bit about what's going on with the current workforce. So today we have 5 generations in the workforce, starting from what we call the silent generation to Gen Z. And it turns out approximately 25% of today's workforce are millennials. But even more important, by 2020, it's forecasted that about 70% of the workforce will be either millennials or Gen Z. Think about that, 70%. Now, why is that important? It's important because the workforce now has grown up in a very different environment. They're used to social, they're used to networking with their friends. Social media didn't even exist many years ago, and now it is very common. It's something people use all the time. The second thing is they're also much more focused on being parts of teams. And while we, in the traditional sense, might have thought of assigning tasks to individuals, getting that work done, obviously now we're dealing with a very different type of workforce that is much more used to working in terms of teams and owning the outcomes. And then they're also very used to having a persona-based, almost like an individualized interaction with the world. What do I mean by that? I'll give you an example. So if I'm, think about me, I'm going to Lisbon or I'm traveling someplace and I'm looking for what should I do there? What kind of restaurants do I want to go to? What sites do I want to see? Which hotels do I want to stay in? I would go find that out for myself. And then once I'm done, I'd say, okay, I'll pick this and this and this. But if you think about a persona-based, they're expecting a curated experience. I like these kind of things, and I'm going to Lisbon. And so the world essentially tells them in a much more directed manner what kind of things they would enjoy while they're there. So that's the way that's what they bring to work. That's the way they're thinking, and that's what they bring to work. So that's the important part of why the changing workforce becomes very important. And frankly, I think all of you are seeing this already, which is the kind of changes that are happening right now as you yourself are going through and changing the way, going from like an inward focused, here's the assignment, sit in your cubicle, get the job done, to much more of a how do people accept the work. And if you don't do that, there's a culture clash. And so that obviously is not a good thing. Second thing is the fact that people need to own the outcomes, which means they need to understand the context and sign up for the work, not necessarily be told what kind of work they should be doing. So much more of an ownership, which is where you get the outcomes, where people are very driven when that happens. And then, we've not done a really good job of giving the right kind of tools. So, lots of tools that are available in the workplace, sometimes not so easy to use. And what happens then is people may use point technologies like something for the team or something else, which kind of solve the problem. But over time, what happens is you find people are not so happy, and so they don't come and work because they don't like the tools that they have at their disposal. And so you have a talent gap as well when that happens. So I really have to think about how the nature of work is changing and why it's changing, and that's hugely important. And the way the nature of work is changing is really about thinking not about projects or programs that start someplace, have milestones, come to an end, and then you're done. It's much more about some outcome which is important to the business, relevant to the business, and lives on. So think of it as a durable asset, and that is a product. So the mindset changing from working on programs or projects to something durable like a product which lives on, which iterates, which then actually is the value you're providing. It could be to your customers, it could be to your employees, it could be to your partners, but all of the fundamental change in the way of thinking is going from like a program to much more of a product that you're bringing to market. That means that the line of business becomes an important owner along with IT for what you're working on. There's a Gartner study that says that by 2020, approximately 40% of organizations will be looking at how do they make this transition. And the transition, as I said, also impacts how you think about working inside the organization between the line of business or the business owners and IT, which brings me to the most important part, that at some point, the tools, the processes, all that are important, but what's even more important is tying strategy to execution. So how do you think about what you're doing strategically, and then how are you actually executing against that strategy? So this is where CA comes in. You heard from Mike Gregoire, our CEO, about the modern software factory. And what I thought I'd do is talk a little bit about the role of the Agile Management Business Unit in helping you develop that modern software factory. And frankly, it's anything that you're working on that becomes a part of what your business outcomes are, and how can Agile Management help you with that. So the first thing, and I'll share again my personal experience. When I came to CA and I took the job of the GM about 3 months ago, and I participated in our big room planning. It was a really fantastic experience for a bunch of reasons. We had customers, we had about 35 customers participating with us, but we had the entire value stream there as well. It wasn't just like engineering sitting and talking about technology. It wasn't just product management saying this is what we need. It was everyone. And so if you think about the value stream, there are a couple of things that come to mind. One is you're now focusing on outcomes, because the value stream includes the people who have to sell the product. It includes people who have to service the product, people who have to support the product, people who develop the product, everyone, right? And the second thing is it drives transparency, because we're all together. So we win together, but there's huge amount of transparency. And if you've not participated in it, I would really welcome customers to participate in our big room planning, because it is a really good experience to see that transparency. The second thing that Agile Management Business Unit is doing is looking at the data that we have to get intelligence through analytics. And so I'll talk a little bit more about where we're headed, but analytics become hugely important because we do have data, and it's your data, so we're giving you access to that, but applying analytics so you actually get a sense of what insights you can derive, the intelligence, and using that intelligence to then rapidly iterate. So the iteration of the process, of what you're working on, the outcomes you're expecting, are all driven by the fact that you're learning along the way. So really, if I think about our business unit, that's the work that we're doing, and that's what we're working with you on. Now, taking a step back and thinking about how teams work. When I first came to CA, I took the job of running the India development team, about 1,200 engineers, different business units. So we had all stages of our own transformation going on. So we were going through our own Agile transformation. And what I found was some business units were very focused on checking the boxes. Scrum Masters, check. RTEs, check. Are we doing the right kind of epics? Check. Are we doing the celebrations? Check. Are we, all of that. But they got so much focused on the process, and the teams were looking at the process, not looking across to say, what are we looking at as outcomes? I had another business unit. The VP met with me and said, okay, we've, welcome to CA, et cetera, et cetera. And then he said, here's what we've done in the last 12 months. We went, actually more than 12 months, about 18 months. We went through the Agile process. We made some mistakes. We learned along the way. But then what he started to explain was, we cut our development time by 6 months. We increased our capacity by 30%. We have better NPS because our quality is improved, because we have customers involved. They tell us if we're doing something really not of value to them, they'll share it with us. So NPS went up. NPS went up substantially for that one business unit. So what struck me was that putting the customer in the center and then looking at both, what is the mindset, the Agile mindset, which is outcome-based, looking at tying strategy to execution versus only the process. And so the combination of the two, I thought, was a very powerful outcome. And then, of course, we started to replicate that in the other business units inside of my team. So I wanted to share that with you because I do see sometimes the celebrations, the going through is important, but what's more important is focusing on the business outcome. And I think as you think about what tools you're using, what processes, and you're here at CA World, I'd really encourage you to think about what those outcomes are that are important to your organizations. Obviously, we don't do this alone. We have a fantastic team. And I'm really pleased that we recently, about 2 months ago, had Dilshad Simons join us as Senior VP of Product for the Agile Management Business Unit. She came to us from Jive Software, has worked at Apogee, at Microsoft, at Sun, so has a fantastic software background. But more importantly than that, what I really found is that she's done 3 things that I think are hugely important for us. Number one, has brought a sense of focus around the customer and how that relates to our product, which the team was doing, but putting some context and structure around it. Number 2 was bridging the gap between the various products in the portfolio. So we have PPM, we have Agile Central or Rally, and we have ITSM. And how do we think about this as a portfolio, and how can we be better together rather than better just by each of these different product lines? And then third thing, of course, is really energize the team. And you'll see that in a few minutes. Please welcome Dilshad Simons.
Thank you, sir. All right, awesome. I'm delighted to be here. Thank you, Surya. I'm delighted to be here with all of you, but I'm also delighted to be at CA with the Agile Management products. It's actually pretty rare for a product leader to have world-class set of products just coming into the business unit. I'm excited to have this great best-in-class product set in markets that are actually growing. And it may seem like a market's growing, that's just a business statement, it's about dollars and cents, but absolutely not. For a product leader, when you see a market growing, to us, that means change. Change means we can actually do what we need to do to give better value to you. With change comes the opportunity, right? This morning you heard quite a bit from Jimmy and others about that change. Because all around us, the paradigms are changing. There are better ways of doing things. But there's a third thing that really delights me, and it's a great team. So this is my climbing team, if you heard Jimmy, right? Some of them are here, right here. So allow me to introduce you to my climbing team. So this is me on this side. All the way on the other side is Greg. Greg and I are actually the newest members of the team. We've both been at CA for less than a year. Right? But Greg brings with him 20 years of experience in the industry managing engineering and product management teams. In his last company, he instituted the lean startup methodology into the what they delivered. And this is critically important to everything we do, and the customer focus. Today, in his current role, he's really focused on the connections between the product lines that we have in our portfolio, as well as being the connecting team between our BU and the accelerator program. If you haven't already visited, all the way on the other side of the hallway, all the way on the other side of the trade show floor is the accelerator program. And how we work with them is really critical to what we do every day. Last but not the least, his team owns the FlowDoc product, and that is also an important connector because it is a collaboration tool that brings people together, not just based on roles or goals. Next to Greg is Ambarish. Ambarish actually has been with CA for 14 years, all in the service management space. So his experience in this is paramount. He's worked in product roles, which he's doing today, leading, driving vision and strategy. But prior to that, he was in customer-facing roles. So that brings with him great energy, but great understanding to drive the product vision with your perceptions, with your what you give to us every day. Next to him, right in the middle, is Shannon. Shannon Mason has been with Rally Agile Central for a decade in roles ranging from consultant, coach, and now leading the product direction. She actually has a great passion for neuroscience. Why is that important? A lot of what we do in this business unit is connecting social and behavioral thinking and applying it to work and what we do every day. So she drives it with that passion in mind. Last but not the least, Kurt. Kurt has spent his entire career in the PPM space, starting from the inception of the CA PPM product. But don't let that fool you. If you haven't interacted with him, see him in front of a customer audience, see him in front of his team, and when he takes an idea, sees a challenge, and tries to connect that with what the product can do, he's like a kid in a candy shop, okay? So what this team is about, from my perspective, is they're innovative veterans. This is a really important concept for me. So we must have the view and the understanding of what the technology can do, what customers use it for, and then always look at it with the beginner's mind, if you will. Okay? Merging of those two together is incredibly important to what we do every day. Having said that, are we the only ones who drive the innovation? Is this it? Just 5 people? Of course not. We have our teams, our engineering teams, our pre-sales teams, our coaches, our consultants, but even that is all ca.com, and it's actually absolutely not enough. You, all of you, are an extension of what we do every day. You're an extension of our team. We hope you partner with us, and you partner with us in many, many different ways. We try to listen to you in many ways. There are many avenues for this. We try to get your ideas in our online communities or our idea communities. Some of you may have actually posted ideas there. Others may have upvoted the ideas there. So we can actually bring that up. When your upvote goes there, it makes us go, we should really look at this idea. There's a pattern here. But those are not the only ways. There are many, many other ways. We get feedback in some of our products directly within the product. When you hit the feedback button, those are comments we're reading. We have you in our big room planning sessions. We love having you in our big room planning sessions. Thank you for being a part of those. We have you in our beta programs. And thank you again for working with us and helping us eat our own dog food and eating it with us, or drinking our own champagne, as some people call it. You give us feedback on the Nps Survey. We read them. I personally read them. Our team reads them. We read the zero score feedback. We read the 10 score feedback. We read everything in between. We want to learn with you. So thank you for that. And of course, many other ways, right? We go in, we do design sessions, we do empathy interviews, we come on site, we want to learn with you as to how you use the product and how we can actually learn from your new paradigms. Or maybe you don't use our product and we want to learn from those paradigms as well. We want to see what bothers you, stresses you, as well as what elates you and inspires you. And of course, we have our user group meetings and customer advisory boards. Long laundry list, right? You're going, why is she talking about all this? Well, one, thank you. Thank you for that, because your ideas, your feedback, our conversations actually both challenge us and inspire us, which is a big part of innovation, right? Every time you innovate, there's this frustration. There's a moment of this like enormous frustration, and then there's a moment of elation. And those go hand in hand. But there's another point. I'm going to give you some examples of how we listen to this. All this feedback comes to us, and every single product line I talked about before, service management, PPM, Agile Central, all three of the roadmaps and beyond, FlowDoc, we have initiatives for our product lines as to where we take our products towards, our roadmaps. And one of those initiatives, always and always, is voice of the customer. So we're looking at all this feedback, prioritizing, looking at the patterns, looking at the technology patterns, what we see emerging, and trying to make sure that we provide a better solution every day. Let me give you a few examples. And some of these you're actually going to see on the trade show floor. You're going to hear about from my team as they present their roadmaps. PPM. Kurt is going to talk about in his roadmap later today something that he may refer to as the top-down planning. You'll see elements of what I would call a road mapping principle applied to strategy and corporate initiatives. This came from multiple conversations Kurt had with customers trying to understand, how does your company plan? How does your enterprise plan the corporate strategy, lay it across time? In what different ways do they want to look at it? And what he heard was, well, you know what? Actually, there's usually an executive session. They go into a room, there's whiteboards, there's Post-its. So we're trying to give you another way to do that with this top-down planning. But you'll hear a lot more about it, and he can best describe it. Another example. In the Agile Central Roadmap session tomorrow that Shannon is going to do, you're going to hear about a concept we call funding increments. We'll also call it slices because it's kind of a cooler name in some ways, I suppose. What is this? Well, the idea came from multiple customer conversations over the summer. But we took the idea and then cross-checked it around against some other patterns we saw. The idea is this. Yes, in the development organization, we have this hierarchy of artifacts that we deal with, we love, we just use it all the time, right? Initiative, feature, story, task. But when you move over to the business side, do you always want the hundreds of feature stories that you had over here and the entire hierarchy to be able to reflect what the business needs to get done? What does the business need to get done? Well, if it's a retailer, maybe they're actually got a product or an initiative on the business side, on the corporate side, that is about e-commerce, or maybe it's about merchandising, and so on and so forth. So what we did is essentially we took that entire hierarchy, or we're taking it, and we said, we're going to give you a cross-section of it, like a cake. I'll just cut the layers of the cake and give you a slice in the way you want it. What does that do? It connects business. It'll enable us to connect business and development views, IT views, better together. We got the feedback over the summer, and now it's on the show floor, and you can take a look at it. These are much bigger themes, but I'll give you an example of a smaller theme. On Agile Central again, you're going to hear us talk about developer pairs. How we've repeatedly heard in our ideas communities that really people are hiring more and more developer pairs, or they're pairing up developers. So we're going to give you a way of taking most of our artifacts and assigning custom user fields to it, so you can actually have a developer pairing in it as well. Another example. In ITSM, our team looks at the online community ideas religiously. They've already, over the over the course of that time, delivered 81 of those ideas in the product line. And you'll hear more about that later today in Ambarish's roadmap session as to what they've delivered. Every release, we have several of those ideas delivered. Okay? So thank you for all this feedback. And before I hand it back over to Surya, I want to tell you about 3 things that really excite me as I look forward to everything we're going to do collectively. And I mean we, not just the 5 people. There are some key trends, I believe, that goes across our entire portfolio. There are some others that are just for a specific product line, but allow me to expand on those 3 big things that I see. 1, the user experience transformation. Now, this may seem like, okay, pretty obvious, right? You just kind of move the windows and put things around here. We're not talking about a veneer transformation here, right? Our paradigms are changing. It's not just about the age either. It's about everything we use. Some of you potentially use voice-activated systems at your home, right? Many of us use the mobile phone paradigm. So our expectations of how to use a powerful system has changed completely. So there are 2 things we're exploring under this transformation of user experience. 1, we're going to look at how you use things, and we're going to try to continuously simplify the power we offer you. But 2, and therefore, what I call that is design for humans who have roles and responsibilities and an environment they live in, also known as persona, which Surya did a great job explaining. But there's a second thread there. I don't know if many of you heard this term or phrase, AI as the new UI, artificial intelligence as the new user interface, right? We're taking it for granted. Many of us are actually ordering the Siri interface and Cortana interface and Amazon Echo interface and Google Home interface around in our homes all the time. We expect that some of that applies beautifully to what we do every day, some of the tasks we do every day. So that's about user experience transformation, 1 thread. Thread number 2, how do these portfolio products connect together without having to be one monolithic experience, so we can give you all the right set of things to wire your entire business together, to connect business and IT and delivery together. I believe our portfolio is formed of this investment and strategy cycle, kind of that rolls around the PPM product line, execution cycle that rolls around the Agile Central Rally product line, and connecting very closely to it, delivery cycle, ITSM, and the DevOps offerings, our friends at the booth next door over there, at the theater next door. How can we actually connect these in ways that make sense for you so you can look at your business more effectively, be more productive? Okay, last but not the least, so there are 3 points in here, right? The third thread is the one that excites all of us, I think. When you connect these business processes together, what flows through them is data. What we do in this organization is we actually have collaborative applications. So it's one of the most exciting places to work in. We connect psychology, work, and technology together. Then what do we do with them? What do we do when we have all that data? Do we use it for anything beyond giving you a dashboard so you can look at it? Well, those are good, but what we want to do, remember the Netflix example from this morning's keynote? Where is the power there? The power is taking that data and guiding you to make a better plan, telling you, hey, those teams, the last few sprints, the last few iterations, they were actually working at 69% of the capacity, and you're just trying to make a plan for 80% of the capacity. Does that make sense? Why don't we guide you in those directions? So that's something you're going to see us explore more and more, this predictive nature of it. So let me stop there. And what I'll do now, turn it back to one of our customers, Trek, who's going to tell you a little bit about how they use our product line to do what they do today. So thank you very much, and hope you have a wonderful show.
The Trek Segafredo partnership is a great example of how all organizations can benefit from becoming an agile business, even a UCI World Tour team, using the solutions and services from CA Technologies.
A cycling team is composed by 25 riders and, let's say, almost 50 staff. Very often we are overlapping in 4 programs. We are fitting right now in a unique software, all that is communication, logistic, medical data, sporting data. When you want to reach a result, you don't have very often too much time to think and you just need to react fast. And that's how CA is helping us a lot.
We look always for the competitive edge. Cycling is becoming more and more data-driven. We need to have under control the maximum data possible. CA is allowing us to improve that in a secure way and support the best way possible the riders.
Imagine a rider coming back from injury being made available to help the team become more competitive. To normally roster that rider in was a very manual process. With CA Technologies and the solutions we've now provided to the team, they can roster that rider in minutes automatically, thereby releasing their resources to focus on other aspects, giving them that competitive advantage.
The bicycle business, and in particular the product development cycle, is moving just as fast as the racing. Thanks to CA FlowDoc, we are able to communicate with the racers like in a heartbeat and get product feedback and details about every single part of the bike in no time.
That's how CA can help us in communication and helping us be in advance respect to all the other competitors.
That was great. You know, I was talking to Brian Thompson from Aetna last night at the reception, and he was sharing the outcomes and the fact that what he took on was a mandate or an objective set by the chairman of the company with a hard deadline, and the fact that you see outcomes based on taking on very difficult, sometimes very transformational projects and getting them to completion. So hearing from a customer is always very inspiring to all of us. Dilshad mentioned a little bit about what kind of technologies we've been working on. So we talked about personas. We talked about the combination of or taking strategy and tying that to execution. And we talked about insights and analytics. I want to spend a few minutes on each one of these. You know, you will recall, some of you who've been here a couple of times, 2 or 3 years, might recall we talked about personas and we had 1. And then we had 2 or 3. And we've expanded that across the product line, which is really thinking about how does the business leader interact with our products? How does the project manager interact with the products? What does she need? Or someone else who's doing a product management role, what does he need? And then how do we provide those personas back? So again, we've done this through ethnographic research. We actually sat down and sat with users and made sure that we got the feedback, and we were able to improve the products across all the portfolio by doing the ethnographic research. Second thing is really around the integration of strategy and execution. What do I mean by that? I do this myself. You know, as a business owner, I have a certain amount of funding. It's limited funding, and I'm trying to make sure that aligns with the objectives and the strategies that we've set together for this business. So there's a funding model, and a product like PPM obviously is very helpful not only in allocation of that, but having the dashboarding and giving you the information about matching the strategy with where the money is being spent, and then tying that to execution, which is the Agile Central or Rally, giving access to information about where the project is, what's the capacity, what's the timeline, do you have the right kind of work being done, and so you're able to tie these two together. So what have we done? We've actually started integration between the 2 products. With 15.3, you can see more seamless going back and forth between the 2 products with PPM 15.3. And so that's something that we've actually delivered, and there's more to come, but Dilshad actually has appointed a director of product management who owns the integration. So there's a single individual who has that responsibility. And then I talked about the insights and analytics. Again, we've rolled out quite a bit of the capabilities already. But when I look at analytics, it's not a one-time thing. It's a journey. And it's a journey because your data can give you insights that are much more meaningful and powerful when we make those available back to you. So if you think about what that means, if we apply machine learning and artificial intelligence to that data, we can give you that predictability that Dilshad was talking about. 3-6 months ahead of hitting a problem, to know that you're going to hit that problem is incredibly powerful. It's also incredibly effective at having management take a look and say, okay, I need to do something different here. Otherwise, I'll be in trouble 6 months from now. So taking that analytics, applying machine learning is a very powerful way of us giving you predictability to be able to do what-if analyses. If I did this, what would happen? Or bringing work to teams that you have in place already. You know you have teams, you know there's a certain amount of supply or capability or capacity, and you've got demand, which is the work that you need to get done. So bringing that together much more effectively is, again, the power of leveraging data. And then, Dilshad already talked about the natural language processing. It's something that we're building in. It's very contextual to the products. It's not something you can take off the shelf. There's a lot of off-the-shelf technology available, but it has to be contextual to the specific language that's used for our products. So that's the work we're doing as well. Now, as I look at the entirety of the portfolio and bringing them together, it's really about looking at it from a business lens and tying that to the execution lens. And all three products come together in this case. So you've got the strategy, the financials, almost like the ERP coming out of PPM. So you have a business lens. Again, as I said, I use that myself, so it's a nice way to figure out where we're spending the money. And at the same time, using both Agile Central as a way to track the execution, as well as ITSM for tying the services piece to it. So that's what we're pulling together as we think about the evolution of the portfolio, and having one leader on the product management side really helps us now think around how to make that happen, again, with your voice and your inputs. As we go forward, we're also looking at how we evolve each of these products. So if you think about what we're doing with PPM, bringing this power of the tying of strategy, having analytics, so you can now interactively say, what are the durable assets that I'm going to bring to market, and how do I have interaction with the way I'm investing in those? That's what we're using analytics for, and predictability. Looking at what the strategy is that you're driving within the business, or whoever your business owners are, and then looking at the investment and being able to analyze and bringing together both the line of business view as well as the IT view, so that working together, you're delivering the outcomes to the business. And so, again, coming back to my initial theme of it's business outcomes that are important, not necessarily that you're doing more work, because that's a means to an end. If I look at Agile Central, Dilshad already talked about the predictability we're building in, but again, with using the data and analytics and doing machine learning on it. We also recognize that integrations are important. And when I say integrations, I really mean about bringing solutions to market. I talked about PPM and Agile Central, but it's also integrations with the DevOps team as well, which is, we call it the Continuous Delivery Business Unit. But the products that come out from there, like the Agile Requirements Designer, or the Continuous Delivery Director, and we're showcasing some of that on the floor. We also know that we have to integrate with third parties, including our competitors. And so we're working on integration with some of the leading tools that you may be using in your organizations, because we know it's important that we also function with them. We're working towards deployment flexibility. We know that while we have a fantastic multi-tenant SaaS product, we also know that there are other instances in hosting on a virtual or private cloud that is important to you. So we're also working on how we make that happen within Agile Central. And of course, giving you not only visibility to quality, but tying that in a much more seamless manner so you can actually do work, not focus on work, setting up the work, So it's much more seamless in being able to have the right people work on the right problems without having to spend a lot of time planning for it. So those are some of the ways we're also helping you improve quality. And on service management, I talked about the persona-based work that we've done, and we're spending a lot of time now on the business user interface and the experience so that the business user has a much better high-level aggregated view of the services rather than something that requires like someone drilling down 2 or 3 levels, but giving you a like a geography and the services that are applicable across the geography. So that's some of the things we're looking at as we look in the future. But let's talk about the present. Right now, you're here at CA World. We have a lot going on here. We have our designers here. There are 8 design sessions. Please stop by, participate with them, because they would love to hear from you. And you can also see where we're headed from a design perspective. And design is obviously not just UI, it's the UX, it's the entire thing. We have 50 experts, Agile coaches and the like. Please take some time to meet with them. Again, you can do that in the agility zone. Take some time to do that. And then hearing from your peers, not just from us, but from our other customers. 232 sessions, incredibly good way to find out what others are doing, what they're experiencing as well. So, coming to CA World, great place to learn about the products. Las Vegas is a good place to be. But I want to take a step back. What you're doing is not easy. Transformation is not easy. You're working within organizations. I shared my own experience. And as I reflect on that, a few things come to mind. Number one, what you're doing is not only not easy, it's also incredibly important. You're driving transformation within your companies, but I want to take a step back. You're also driving transformation across industries. You're driving where the world is headed. You're leading that. Other organizations are following, and they will follow, and they will go through that, but really it's the work you're doing is where it really comes together. And then I said it's not easy. We're here to provide the tools, the consulting, the advisory, all of that. That's obviously a lot of what we're doing. But I'd like you to please, if you think of one thing you can take away from CA World, it is that the business outcomes of what your businesses are looking for. I heard someone say, well, we're 20% Agile, we want to go to 40% Agile or 60% Agile. That's good, but really for what purpose? So thinking about what we have here, linking it to the business objectives of your organizations and saying, oh, I've got some tools that I've learned from CA World, but I've also made them applicable to what my organization is going through. And last but not least, CA is here on the journey with you. As I said, it's not easy, but at the same time, you have our commitment that we're partnering with you. We want to partner with you. We want to be there on that journey with you so that eventually, as you're leading the world, we're there standing next to you, helping with that transition. So thank you again, and please enjoy CA World.